Hello and welcome to Unpreachy, a podcast of homilies and reflections from St. John Chrysostom Parish. Today, Monsignor Hank McKee reflects on Mark, chapter 9, verses 2 to 10, the Gospel for the second Sunday of Lent, February 25th, 2024.
You guys remember pop quizzes? Pop quizzes, you know? I hated them. If you told me a test was coming up Friday, and they told me what the subject was, I'd study, I'd prepare, and I did pretty well. But pop quizzes, they should be outlawed. And it's not fair. It's not fair. I don't care what the teachers say, and the educational says. I just think it's unfair. But we've all been tested. In school, whatever school we went to, we've been tested. Could be grade school, high school, trade school, college, whatever. And we usually test it in our proficiency in a certain subject or area of study. Just to say how old I am, when I took my driver's test, I don't remember writing anything or answering any questions. I went up to the barracks, the state police barracks. A state trooper got in my car, and I drove around, and I failed. I failed my first driver's test. But just to ease your anxiety, I passed the second time, okay? I passed the second time. But today they tell me there's a whole written thing on the computer that they have to answer all these questions about making a left turn or a right turn or what a red light means. You all know what a red light means, don't you? Stop. And as I get older, the doctors, you know, when I was young, they never sent me for a test. Now today, because I guess I get older, I'm going to this doctor and this hospital and this, with those little places. They're not called hospitals, but they have all the medical services. Oh yeah, there's fast care things, yeah, whatever. But I mean, my doctor's given me every test in the world. And then the challenge is when they give you the results, like they send them to you. What the heck? Don't send it to me. Send it to the doctor and let him explain it to me. Like I'm going to figure out what this test means, what the results of this test means. In today's first reading, though, in the book of Genesis, we are told that God put Abraham to the test. It wasn't an aptitude test. It had nothing to do with getting a license for anything. It wasn't a medical test. The test that Abraham experienced was the test of faith. And this wasn't the first time that Abraham experienced testing in his life. But I think we'd all agree that today's test in the book of Genesis is the ultimate test for any father. You know, maybe you, in your mind and my mind, I think God is asking the unthinkable. I think it's outrageous that he would ask to Abraham to offer up his son, Isaac, his only son, as a holocaust. It boggles my mind. I mean, how can Abraham do that? But Abraham we're told that he set up the altar, he got the wood, he was ready to offer his son up as a holocaust. And then the messenger of God comes and calls out, Abraham, Abraham, do not lay your hand on the boy. I would suggest to you that Abraham obeyed God because he knew God. Abraham knew that God was a loving God. And because of that, he trusted God. In Abraham's relationship with God over many years, Abraham came to trust God and put his faith in God because he knew God. He knew God. Abraham's faith, his devotion to God, it is seen in his not withholding his own son from God. Today's gospel, the Transfiguration, takes place shortly after Jesus had informed his disciples that he would suffer, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, be killed, and rise after 3 days. Many scripture scholars view the Transfiguration as a revelation. They see it as an event that would strengthen the disciples' faith. Peter, James, and John, the big three, they're the ones that Jesus took up for the Transfiguration. It was Peter, James, and John that experienced the Transfiguration with the thought that their faith would be strengthened, and that the memory of the Transfiguration, the memory of witnessing Elijah and Moses, of hearing a voice from the cloud say, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him," that the memory of that would strengthen them when they were tested. And they were tested. They were tested. At the time of Jesus' arrest, his trial, his scourging, his suffering and death on the cross, that truly tested the apostles. And it was thought that the Transfiguration, the memory of that would strengthen them in this time of testing, in this time of trial, that they would still hold fast to their faith in Jesus, the Son of God. Along our faith journey, we will all be tested. Sorry to tell you that no one goes through life without being tested. I would suggest, though, that it isn't God who's testing us. I believe it is life that tests us. Living life in this world has its challenges, its obstacles to overcome, its trials to bear. Living life in this world can be difficult, has its challenges. But just as Jesus dealt with testing throughout his life in this world, we too can expect to be tested. We have to always be conscious that Jesus was human as we are, and that the aches and pains, the trials and tribulations that we experience, he experienced. You know, for you young people, I can imagine Jesus being bullied by the kids from Nazareth. I can see Jesus experiencing difficult times in growing up as an only child. I can see Jesus dealing with some issues along the way, a teenager, a young adult. So always be conscious that what you go through, how you are tested in, we trust that Jesus was tested too. He knows what you're going through. He knows what you're experiencing. Abraham, though, knew Jesus. He knew God. He trusted in loving God. And so he knew that God was with him and that God walked with him. Today, we are invited to put on Abraham, to adopt Abraham's faith, to trust in our times of testing that we are not alone, but that our loving God walks with us. As Peter, James, and John had their faith tested when Jesus endured his passion and his death, may we, in our times of testing, in times of doubt, in times of questioning, climb up that mountain. May we hear that voice of the Father remind us that this Jesus is my Son, my beloved Son. Listen to him. Trust him. May we recognize our struggles, our times of testing as an opportunity. Our times of testing are times of an opportunity to claim our faith, and sometimes to reclaim our faith, that we are not alone, that the Lord walks with us. It's an opportunity to reclaim or to acclaim our faith, reaffirm our faith in a God, a loving God, who is with us and walks with us.
Unpreachy is a production of St. John Chrysostom Parish in Wallingford, Pennsylvania. Visit us at sjcparish.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. This podcast was produced by Brendan Lorden with music by Skytoes on Upbeat. Thanks for listening. Be well.